Do all these things we've been talking about, do they work? I want to share with you a couple of additional things, because the thing to maintain that the motivational momentum is going to be extremely important. As I talked about earlier, we need to run our day by the clock, our life with a vision. We need to be grateful for what happens in our life. Hans Selye says the healthiest of all human emotions is gratitude. Again, a cab driver, Houston, Texas, early one morning, headed for a breakfast, caught a cab. It was only about 3/4 of a mile, but they advised me not to walk that time since it was dark, in that particular area of town. I got in the van, and as always, I greet people with enthusiasm. I said, "Well, how you doing?" And his verbatim answer was, "Praise God, I am in America." And I heard the daggonest sales talk on America in the next 10 minutes I have ever heard in my life. I'm telling you, it was absolutely incredible. Now, bottom line is this man had been a registered pharmacist, again, from Nigeria. He was more excited by far about being a cab driver in America and more grateful for the opportunity. He said, "I will get my license to be a pharmacist here, but in the meantime," he said, "I am having an absolutely wonderful time. I'm just so glad to be here." The more you express gratitude for what you have, the more you will have to express gratitude for. And it works the other way too. The more you gripe about the problems you got, my friend, I'll absolutely guarantee it, the more problems you will have to gripe about. The whiners of life, we hear them all the time. I'm so often tempted to carry cheese with me because I understand that wine and cheese, kind of go together, all right? Now, we need to express gratitude for our friends, our family, our job, our health, America. Again, the more you express gratitude for what you have, the more you will have to express gratitude for. We teach a 3-day course. It's called Born to Win. People come from all over the world. One of the men whom I'd been consulted with, psychiatrist Louis Cady, was with us a year or so ago. I get involved in, as you've noticed early on in this series, in a whole lot of self-talk, because that self-talk is so important. I've seen lives change. I've seen miracles happen as a direct result of it. Dr. Cady wrote me this card. He said the experience at Born to Win was one of a lifetime. And I've already started putting numerous ideas to work. And incidentally, this was April 12, 1994, and he's finished his book now. You also sold me, and finally, despite my thick skull, on using the affirmation card, and the results thus far, this was just 5 days after he finished, have been almost frightening in their intensity and speed. But it is a frighteningly good way. What you say to yourself is so incredibly important. Most important opinion you have is the opinion you have of yourself. The most important conversation you will ever have is the conversation that you will have with yourself. When we look at the things we're talking about, I like to always emphasize that you need to be realistic and practical in the things that we do. I believe when I make statements and all, I believe I am being absolutely pragmatic. I love the story of the fellow that was in Tel Aviv. He was doing a tour of the Mann Center for the Performing Arts. The tour guide was really putting it on thick. I mean, it was a beautiful facility, granite and marble and the tapestries and the gold inlays and the incredible paintings and the acoustic. It was really something. And finally, one of the tourists said, "Well, I suppose this was named after Horace Mann, the famous author." And the tour guide said, "No, it was named after Frederick Mann from Philadelphia." And the tourist said, "Frederick Mann, don't believe I've ever heard of him. What did he write?" The tour guide said, "A check." Now that's being practical. That's being pragmatic. I'm pragmatic. I was in Atlanta. A young man picked me up to take me down to the hotel where I was to be speaking. And he was just going on and on about, must be wonderful to have a company where your number one objective in life is to help people be all they can be. And I said, "Young man, I appreciate the accolades, but you got it wrong. That's not my number one objective." He said, "It's not your number one objective?" He said, "What is your number one objective?" I said, "It's to make a profit." I said Samuel Gompers, an early labor leader, says that the number one responsibility of a business is to make a profit. That's the only way you can stay in business. That's the only way those other 60 employees are going to have a job. It's the only way we can make a contribution to society. So our number one objective is to make a profit so we can hit our number one priority, which is to help people be all they can be. You see, there is that thing called the bottom line, and we learned several years ago you can do a great deal more with profit than you can loss. I don't know if any of you have noticed. How many have noticed that in your own life? You see, with integrity, you have nothing to fear because you have nothing to hide. And that is the most nerve-wracking thing at all. These people that, run from the law for years and finally get caught, they say almost across the board, what a relief. Your creativity is stifled. Your productivity is absolutely destroyed. It's absolutely astonishing. Now, we're talking about a different approach. I want to close this recording with a little story about the most moving event that's happened in my life since I've been doing this. And since I have been getting into the self-talk bit. You remember in an early recording, we did talk about the biblical promises that are tied directly to this. That the Bible really says you can be happier, you can be healthier, you can be more prosperous, you can be more secure, you can have more friends, you can have greater peace of mind, you can have those better family relationships, and yes, you can have the hope. Well, I got into the self-talk at a convention down in New Orleans, Louisiana. And this happened back in 1990. I spoke in early January there. About 6 weeks later, I got one of the most moving letters I've ever received from anybody. A mother was writing me and she said, my daughter and I were in New Orleans. She took down and listed all the qualities of success. And every morning and every night, she stood in front of the mirror and she claimed those. As a direct result of claiming these qualities, it led her back into the Bible. She made her peace with God, and on January 20th, 1990, she was killed in an automobile accident. But she is safe today. My friends, I got to tell you, when something like that happens, you get the chill bumps all over you, but those gratitude bumps really come out big. She's only 21 years old. I'm telling you, we're talking about some principles that absolutely are life-changing. They will be enormously beneficial. As I close this, let me simply say that with these attitudes we've been talking about, taking this approach, putting other people first, there are going to be certain people that are going to kind of laugh at you and say, man, you're different. But let me remind you, the little world laughed, but the big world gathered on the banks of the Hudson when Fulton went steaming by. The little world laughed, but the big world was tuned in when Alexander Graham Bell completed that phone call. The little world laughed, but the big world was at Kitty Hawk when the Wright brothers took that first flight into the air, which changed forever the world we're in. Some people might laugh at some of the things we're suggesting that you do here, but I'm here to tell you the big world's going to be standing on the sidelines cheering you with incredible enthusiasm. And the big thing is, it's not what you get by reaching your destination. It's what you become by reaching that destination that is the important thing. Buy these ideas, take these steps, follow these procedures, because if you do, I will see you not just at the top. Hey, I'm going to see you over the top. Thank you, and God bless you. Thank you.